Thanks, Elizabeth. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jenny McNaughton, and I serve as co-chair of Agencies and Applications for Impact. I'm going to walk you through the two-step application process. So before we award funds, it's really important that we have a good sense of each applicant's overall readiness to implement a $100,000 grant. It's a critical step in fulfilling our responsibility to be good stewards of our members' financial contributions. This two-step approach provides us with insight into both organizational and financial readiness before an agency spends the time and energy to complete a project application. It also allows our grant reviewers to really focus on the details and merits of the proposed projects themselves. So let's look at step one, the organizational questionnaire. Agencies who want to apply for a grant must first complete this organizational questionnaire. The information on the questionnaire is the same as last year. The questions are largely yes and no and multiple choice. Should take less than an hour to complete, and that's assuming you've already previewed the questions and information requirements and have pulled together any materials you need to refer to. Our team will use this information to help assess each applicant's readiness to implement an Impact San Antonio grant. Results of this readiness review will be provided to each agency by email no later than May 3rd. And then the project window opens then on May 8th. So a preview of the organizational questionnaire has been posted on our website, and you'll be able to access it in our grant management system on Monday, the 10th, when we're open. This slide shows the categories of questions you'll find on the questionnaire. Answers to these questions, which again are largely yes and no, will help us validate information like, is the agency in compliance with our grant applicant criteria? Does it have an engaged board of directors? Does it have appropriate insurance coverage and practices to help manage risk? Are there any concerns about legal or ethical compliance? Are there standard financial policies and governance procedures in place? It's important to note a couple of things here. First, please explain any year-to-year significant changes on your income statement and balance sheet, such as new loans, large liabilities, or large grants. Second, please also explain any recent events that could change your agency's financial situation that may not be fully reflected in your most recent financials due to timing. And please take this opportunity to explain anything that would help our reviewers better understand the unique circumstances of your agency. So this year, we've made changes to how you'll be submitting information about your board of directors and your agency financials. So this year, instead of attaching a list of board members, this information will be keyed directly into the questionnaire itself. For the financial information, this will also be keyed directly into the system, but please note that we're going to continue to require all applicants to complete and upload a standard financial information worksheet. When you complete this Excel, it's going to make keying into the system much easier, and it will also help us with any validation in case there's a number that gets fat-fingered in our system. We'll also use 990 information in GuideStar, but only as supplemental information if we need it. So here's what the Board of Directors section on the questionnaire looks like. Please be sure to read the directions carefully. I know I'm guilty of not doing that sometimes myself. On the Board of Directors, please note that you'll need to provide both the name as well as the role of each board member in the first column. Our system has a limitation of 5 columns, so that's why you have to do that. So that one's pretty straightforward. So now on to the financials. Similar to last year, you'll first download the required information worksheet, and then you'll complete that. And then next, what's new is once you've completed that, you'll refer back to it to complete your agency financial information sections that are in the organizational questionnaire itself, and that's what it looks like in our system. So as you're inputting this financial information into Foundant, a couple of key reminders. So you'll be entering data for fiscal years ending in 2018 through fiscal years ending in 2022, for those of you that don't have January through December fiscal years. You'll need to round all entries to the nearest dollar. And you must input a value into every field, even if the value is 0. Again, system limitation. And tab is going to be your best friend. That's how you'll advance to the next field. The system will total each column in each section. Please go back and check these totals against your completed worksheet to make sure you've entered it accurately. So once you've entered that in, the financial review is a critical component of how we assess an agency's readiness to implement a grant. We look at several indicators of stability, such as cash reserves, income, assets, liabilities, debt, and diversity of funds. So we also will consider liquidity. We want to make sure that you have cash and current assets available to cover any current liabilities or short-term obligations. We'll look at profitability to evaluate sustainability and consistency of revenue streams. We'll look at your balance sheet composition, looking at sufficiencies of reserves, some standard financial ratios. And lastly, we'll look at diversity of funding sources. So we'll look at grants, individual contributions, government income, program income, to evaluate diversity. And then so we'll wrap all of that up in a determination of overall financial health. So that's going to be based on the above financial indicators, as well as questions on your organizational questionnaire about financial management and governance. So you've done your part, submitted your agency's organizational questionnaire along with the required financial form. Now what happens? So we have a team of Impact San Antonio reviewers that are going to use that information you provide together with the financial information we discussed to complete what we call a readiness review. The team will assess each applicant agency's readiness to implement an Impact San Antonio grant. Results of this readiness review will be provided to each agency via email by May 3rd. Most agencies will move forward to step 2, which is the project application. However, if your agency does not meet our grant applicant criteria, or we identify a significant concern regarding the agency's organizational or financial readiness, we will notify you that your agency will not be able to submit a project application. So let's talk about applicant criteria for a second. Our applicant criteria and disqualifications are posted on our website. It's really important that you review these before spending time on the questionnaire. Each year we have some agencies who are disqualified. The most common reason has been that the agency does not have significant operations in our service area, but there are some others as well. As far as readiness concerns go, we expect this to be the exception. But if we identify a significant concern regarding readiness, including financials, we'll communicate that in the readiness assessment results. In those instances, we believe that an agency's time and effort will be better spent addressing the areas of opportunity in order to strengthen their overall organizational readiness. So now we're going to move on to step 2, which is the project application. So in step 2, you'll submit an application that focuses on the details and impact of the specific project you're proposing. All project applications submitted by the deadline will be screened for both completeness as well as compliance with the Impact San Antonio project criteria, which are also found on our website. Complete and compliant applications will be passed to the appropriate grant review team based on the focus area that you, the applicant, has chosen. Grant review teams will then review each application, focusing their evaluations on the merit of the project that's been proposed. So more in the grant review process in part 2 of our training on May 10th. We'll go into a lot more detail there. So for now, let's take a look at what it takes for a project to be considered high impact, thus worthy of an Impact San Antonio grant. And this should be helpful as you start thinking about the project that you're wanting to propose. So think of these as a kind of measuring stick that we use to evaluate your project proposal. So please keep them front and center when considering what project to choose and how to describe it in your application. So the first marker states that a project should address a critical need in one or more of 5 focus areas, which are, again, arts and culture, education, environment, recreation and preservation, family, and lastly, health and wellness. And your agency will determine which of those is most appropriate for your project. Second, it should improve the quality of life for people in our community. And as a reminder, the counties included in our service area are noted at the bottom of this page. Thirdly, it should achieve significant benefit either through a large number of people impacted or through smaller numbers being impacted in a major way. Fourth, it's important to have a project that either uses an innovative new approach or an existing successful approach that you have evidence that it's going to be effective. I can't stress enough this last point is that the project have compelling and measurable outcomes. Measurable outcomes can sometimes be tricky for applicants. Make sure that what you're proposing can be measured. Ultimately, if you're awarded a grant, you will be using those target outcomes to evaluate the success of your project. So it's to your benefit to have them as clearly defined as possible. So as you start thinking about your project, here are some key logistical information to consider. Grantees will have 2 years to complete the project, so make sure that the project you are proposing can be completed in this time frame. After receiving a high impact grant, grantees will not be eligible to apply again until 2027. That gives the grantee time to complete the project, see the outcomes of the project before they apply again. Grants are not unrestricted. They are granted for the specific project and the project application. So make sure you choose your project carefully. The Grant Oversight and Outcomes team is responsible for approving disbursement of all funds. And this is done in 2 phases, with $10,000 paid out shortly after the grant agreement is signed, and the remainder paid out over the course of the project on a reimbursement basis. Throughout implementation, documentation and reporting is required to ensure proper stewardship of the grant. I know many of you are itching to log on and start step 1, but we still like to remind people that before logging on to Foundant and entering information, it'll serve you well to take a bit of a time to prepare. We promise it'll make it a lot easier. So please review our new grant process and eligibility page on our website. Here you will find the Impact San Antonio applicant criteria and grant criteria, and a preview of both the organizational questionnaire as well as the project application. Make sure you've gathered any information you're going to need to reference while completing it, including financial data, so you have everything within reach. Just a reminder again of the submission windows. The organizational questionnaire opens May 10th, closes April 10th, and closes on April 21st. The project application opens on May 8th and closes on May 26th. At this point in time, you should be thinking about what project your agency wants to propose. This is especially true of capital projects that have much more complex budgets. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I need to say this again. Please do not wait until the last day to submit. If you encounter any issues, you may not have time to correct it before the deadline.